Anyways.
Okay, good evening. I'd like to call the February 13th Kaiser Traffic Safety, Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee meeting to order. The first item would be the approval of the January minutes. Do I have any suggestions for changes or motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, I move that the minutes of January 9th, 2020 be affirmed as written.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the January 2020 minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstention?
We should, Jamie will abstain.
Yeah,
Because you weren't.
Yeah, okay, so one abstention.
I guess I abstain too.
I think that too, David and Jamie. And segueing from that, I would like to welcome Jamie Davis to our committee. And now we are fully stocked with people again. Would you like to take a moment or two to tell everyone about yourself?
My name is Jamie Davis. I live in Kaiser for now, been here 8 years, total 15 years in Salem Kaiser, and I work for the League of Oregon Cities. I'm their accountant. Try to go for the budget committee, but it's a conflict of interest, and I said this is number 2 for me, so here I am hoping to make our city better and safer.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next on the agenda is the appearance of interested citizens, which is a time for anyone to come and talk about something that is not on the agenda, and we have a few tonight. So we'll start with John Henry Maurice, is that correct?
I yield to Carol Dorfler.
Okay.
I'll speak after Carol.
Okay.
Her friend. Can you tell?
Okay, Carol, do you want to come on up? And
Was her friend.
Is there a time limit?
Yes.
I don't need that.
Okay.
Hopefully it's short and sweet.
I'm not in charge of the lights, so
Who's in charge of the lights? Nobody's speaking. Okay. So I'm Carol Dorfler. I'm with the West Kaiser Neighborhood Association, and I'm here tonight to talk about speeding in our neighborhoods. This subject reared its ugly head last summer when a neighbor in my neighborhood association complained about the traffic and speeding going up and down 5th Street. And we brought it here, and another issue evolved out of that, which was rapidly solved, which was a really good thing. But we never solved the issue of speeding. So then 2 residents from the greater Gubser neighborhood came to you in the fall. They were complaining about speeding. And then a little bit later, this thread began on the app next door. There are 80 comments here about speeding and or about speeding. I don't think either of the other neighborhoods, oh yeah, Ken's here from the Southeast Kaiser Neighborhood Association. And so after seeing this, I'm like, I'm not just a crazy old lady. There is an issue with speeding in our neighborhoods. So that's when we decided it was alive and well in Kaiser. And this isn't just a public safety issue. It has to do with our property values also. My neighbor across the street from me, who's been there about 18 months, last summer we were visiting, and he said, you know, Carol, if I had ever known how fast the cars and trucks were flying up and down the street, I never would have bought this house. And it's a nice neighborhood. So that's another aspect of that. The other thing is there are long-term solutions, street designs, whatever, things that are laid out in the NACTO guide, which I've kind of looked at. We need short-term solutions. I mean, it's an endemic problem in all 3 neighborhoods. And we need to put our collective heads together, not get mad at each other, try to find out a solution for this, be it more enforcement, be it speed humps, be it whatever's that I have never thought about, but to get a conversation going and bring an awareness to this problem. Okay. So that's what I have to say. Oh, wait a minute. I have, wait, I forgot to tell you. Mrs. Ramsdell would not be happy with me. I have 3 or 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, copies of a letter from a neighbor that she wanted me to have, and Debbie, I'll give it to you. And if you want a copy of this packet of 80 comments from next door, yes?
Yeah, I would like to see that.
I'll give it to Debbie, and she can make you copies.
How many, I know I read some of those online. How many, a lot of them seem to be from the same people over and over again. Do you remember offhand how many different people?
I did not sort that out. I did not notice that. I wasn't analyzing that. There were comments about speed humps, and people wanted these speed humps. And when I got back to them and said I was coming here, I told them, I said, I'm not coming, and that's probably why maybe nobody showed up, to talk about speed humps. We need to talk about something else at this point. We can talk about speed humps down the road. But this is just a problem that I'm just not willing to let go. I talked about it last summer, and it continues, and it will continue until we figure out how to make it stop.
I know we've talked about this in the past, about how the police will kind of do whack-a-mole, where they'll kind of flood an area for a while and then move on. And so, unfortunately, from a policing standpoint, we just don't have the coverage.
I totally understand that. I totally understand that. Now, whether it be the department has forums or open houses or something to bring people in to talk about the speeding, and it's got to stop, and these, the signs are there. You're supposed to go 20 miles an hour, you go 20 miles an hour. You don't go 30 miles an hour.
Well, I think, at least my impression is most people, at least where I live, I don't see many speed limit signs. So I think most people don't really even are cognizant of it unless they see the blinking school zone 20 miles an hour. And then as soon as they're out of that, they go back to their speeding. So I think an infrastructure solution is required. And it should be something that we incorporate into any road work we do. I understand some areas are more, deal with this more than others, but I think anytime we are tearing into pavement, we should be looking at doing something that makes it a little bit better. Debbie, you'd sent me that study that they had done on Mandarin after the 2 gentlemen came from Gupser neighborhood, and how it didn't show that there was speeding. And I would say, for the most part, most people are pretty good, but I do see people sometimes getting up to 45 plus miles an hour. And it's not only just that, but it's also, they're at the stop sign, and it's the rate of speeding. They might not get far beyond the speed limit, but it's the speed at which they get to the speed limit, which can be dangerous too, so.
Well, I'm just not willing to have people like Mr. Sasha, who lost a child, lose a child because we haven't talked about this and we haven't brought it out and we haven't addressed it. I mean, that's not right. I think for the city to ignore this, that's just not right. There's a problem and it needs to be dealt with. Now, whoever deals with it, fine, we're happy to help. We're happy to help. But we want some recognition that, yes, there is a problem. And yes, it is a public safety issue. It truly is. I am a temporary substitute crossing guard. In my yellow long jacket, my flag, I damn near got hit. Because somebody, some crazy person came around and it was school time. And I was ready to walk out. I was about 3 stripes out and here they came. If that had been a little kid,
Sure.
who knows what would have happened.
No, I was just, she's,
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Dorfer, thank you for coming. Is there any particular recommendations that you think that we should pursue?
That's why I'm here. There's 7 of you and a few of us and 80 people who are aware there's a problem.
Right, but you also understand, I'm not your next door neighbor. I understand where you live, and I understand that street can be busy, but I'm just asking if there's any particular recommendations that you or people that you have visited with have, or are we just starting from zero and need to go study everything from the get-go?
Well, like I said, a lot of them want the speed bumps. And I told them, I said, I'm not going to speed bumps, speed humps, speed tables tonight. I want an awareness made, and then perhaps we can work on solutions.
Okay, thank you.
And just one other aside. The streets, and this makes absolute common sense, but like Mandarin is a straight shot. Shoreline, not so much. There is a little wow in it, but pretty much it seems that it's these longer straight streets that have this issue. Although there's a neighbor here who lives on Tony, and that's not such a long, it's a straight street, but it's not such a long street, but there's issues there. And she did note that sometimes it's like when the kids are get out from school. So.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. I think there's more people to talk about this, so hopefully more ideas will bubble up. So, Mr. Maurice?
First of all, thank you for allowing me to speak. Secondly, I want to thank Dan. He's a very positive individual. He came out and introduced himself. I, as a former member of this committee, am really impressed with your action and your involvement. That is something that we did not enjoy when I was on the committee. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
I know Hirsch, I know Wayne, I know David, I know Debbie, and Mike. I'm back. I would like to reinforce what Carol has said. And to answer your question specifically, Dan, what we're trying to say is we need acknowledgement that there's an issue of traffic safety in this city. Now, we are not the professionals. We are not the people to ask how to address this. But I can speculate that to answer your question, the response should be broad-based and multifaceted. When I was on the committee, Hirsch, when was that? You were president at the time, or chairman.
Chair. 3 years ago? 4 years ago, something like that. Many times, people came to this committee with the same complaint over and over again. And with the addition of some of the social apps, it's beginning to be more prevalent. People are speaking up. So we just wanted to come to the committee and say, we believe there's a problem. We would like someone to look at it and make recommendations to help solve it. That's my statement. Questions?
Mr. Chair.
Seems like it's a general issue throughout the city. Are there specific locations that you have in mind that we could?
I can only speak about the areas that I have, read about in social media and where I live. I live off of O'Neill. And I do know that people have complained about O'Neill. And there have been times when the police have put their speed, what do you call that? Reader? Yeah. So there is activity going on, but I can only speak about what I see personally and what I read about.
So it's long, straight streets where people have a chance to build up too much speed.
I'm not a traffic expert. I would defer to others to determine whether or not O'Neill is considered an arterial.
Residential.
There's residential street. And the speed limit on a residential street, I believe, is 25. But there's been observations that that is often, I'm going to say abused. I like that word. And the police and others have dealt with O'Neill as best they can at this point in time. However, the problem continues and seems to be gathering word meaning getting worse.
Councilor Cole?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, thank you for coming. But one of the things that I noted before I actually ran for city council was that Kaiser is kind of designed poorly, to say the least. The only real arterial, the main arterial we have going north and south is River Road. And so if there's much congestion on River Road, people are going to look for other alternatives. So Verda gets a lot of traffic, and Shoreline gets a lot of traffic, and some of these other roads. So the long-term answer to that is to have another north-south arterial. That's pretty tough to do. But I think that you're right. We can look at some other things that we possibly can do. I had a citizen the other day call me and say, I live off of O'Neill and I'm selling my house because I got to go somewhere where the traffic isn't so bad. And I'm thinking, tell me, and in fact I said, tell me about the traffic. And she said, when school gets out at Clear Lake School, you can't get off Park Meadow Drive onto River Road. You just can't. Some people are wanting to turn left, some turn right, and it's just a real bottleneck there. And I'll be visiting with Bill on what we can maybe do for that particular intersection. But there are big challenges that we have, and none of them have easy answers that I'm aware of.
So what I hear from you is that you are acknowledging that there is a problem.
There's some big challenges.
Hi, David.
Hi. My only problem with it is that, yeah, they're speeding. I'm not denying that. But I was thinking about the 25 mile an hour speed limit, and then somebody mentioned 20, and I was in a neighborhood up in Portland that has 15 posted, but that turns out to be somebody bought a sign and put it up. 25 looks really fast if you're on a small, narrow road with no sidewalks, and the car is 6 feet from you. 25 looks like it's just tearing through. And so when people talk about so-and-so speeding, you could be doing the speed limit, you're going to be accused of speeding by somebody. Not that, and I go out late at night sometimes, and I can hear people coming down like Wheatland or Windsor Island Road's great for, I can hear them drag racing down there at night, right, Hirsch? Hirsch doesn't do that anymore. Anyway, so I have a problem with, granted people are speeding, but we need to define that a lot better. That's one point. And the other is, I don't think it's any of you in this audience that are the speeders, but they're all your neighbors. They're all people you know, and no one's talked to them yet. And it's not nice, because I have a guy down the street who won't talk to me anymore at all, because I thought he was driving too fast. So I mentioned it to him politely. It doesn't make any difference, I guess. So one is how do we educate your neighbor in your neighborhoods? Because those, I think primarily, those are who are doing all the speeding. It's not somebody coming in from St. Paul going to Salem. It's the guy down the street from you, or 5 houses away, or in the next block. So that's going to have to be part of the solution that we address. So those are just more thoughts than, I don't have a solution to what you're saying, but.
Solutions are difficult, and that's why I recommend that we leave it to the experts to come up with possibilities to address this problem. I got a speeding ticket. It can happen. It wasn't in Kaiser, though.
There you go.
It was on the other side of I-5 heading toward Brooks, where it drops down to 35, and I did not drop down to 35.
Coming off.
That's right in front of the facility there. So I did the traffic education, and that taught me a lot, and I'm pleased I took that. If something like that could address a broader base of education, that would be a good thing. I tried to log into that the other day, and my account has been disabled. It timed out. If that was available all the time, where you could say, go here and read what the law is, that would be a good thing. For example, I'm running off in the mouth here. I'll stop. That's good.
Well,
Some other people.
yeah, thank you. I was just going to say that solution sounds like a state level decision and something where it has to be a mandatory at your driver's license
Something
renewal.
that if the
sort of thing.
professional feels that's warranted, we could ask the state to address that.
Yeah, I'm sure we're not the only city with speeders. Okay, well, thank you. Any other questions?
And I'd like to finish with thanking Jamie for being on the committee. Welcome. It's going to be fun.
Sounds like it.
So, for logistics here, we have several people else also on the list, but we also have Mike Jaffe and Gray Carmichael who are here. So I'm going to ask you, this is totally up to you if you want to volunteer this. Have anyone else speak ahead of you who might want to talk about this specific issue? And then you can come up. Thank you. Okay, so Cindy Thompson? Come on up, if you'd like to. And if you speak, you say your name, I should have said that to the other folks. Say your name and just speak clearly into the microphone.
City of reference, city.
In the city where you live, yeah, thank you.
I'm a resident of the Kaiser community. I've been here since 1968. And it was one road on River Road, 2 lanes. I live in Tony Avenue. I've been there almost 30 years. I'm a retired individual. I'm home a lot, and I see a lot of my neighbors don't see because I like looking outside and seeing what's going on in my neighborhood. For the past 5 years or more, I've asked young people to please slow down as they're coming through Tony Avenue. Tony Avenue is a dead end. The church is at the end, and then you hit Mambrin if you go the other direction, which would be south. Most of them are pretty respectful. When I ask them to slow down, I'll put my hand up and go, slow down, you know. We have little people on bikes that come in there occasionally, not all the time. There's a couple of rentals in there that bring in their families, and then they have family reunions and whatnot. And so the kids don't stop and look between the cars, they just dart out. And I'm sure all of you are aware of, you've talked to your little people and told them, please be careful, you know, stop, look, and listen. And as a young child, I remember that. I've seen children get hit, or I've heard of them getting hit on River Road, which is just devastating to me. And it's like, why all of a sudden is this traffic so busy that everyone's got to be in such a big race to get wherever they're going that they can't look to see if there's somebody nearby? I've seen too many of these crosses on River Road, and it just breaks my heart to think that we can't take the time to slow down in our lives to help somebody in our community. As far as my neighborhood goes, I hear it all night long. I hear people going to work. I hear doors slamming. The times have changed. As a teenager, I probably did it myself. I probably went over the speed limit. I was fortunate enough to behave and not get in trouble with it. But as an adult, as a citizen, I truly think that we need to wake up, start paying attention to what's around us, forget a little bit of this technology, and take care of us as people of the community. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Is this Tony Ave North?
Yes, sir.
And what's the cross street there?
Membrin and Menlo.
Thank you.
Any questions? Hirsch?
I'm a very long-term resident of Kaiser, a few months before you. And I've seen the changes too. And we have more traffic, more people. I remember, River Road being 2 lanes and we had one little store and all that. It's a lot bigger now. And I'm reading the email from Susan. She's an old friend, and Churchdale. No sidewalks. If you're riding or walking, you're walking in the middle of the street. It is a quick way to get over to Delight to get into McNary. As the previous speakers mentioned, this is a long-term thing. We need more sidewalks, and as Michael mentioned, designing the sidewalks in a way to give that visual feeling of slowing people down. It's a long-term thing for us in Kaiser, but something we need to, in Kaiser we have to save up money to do things, but maybe start doing that one street at a time. And talking to our neighbors, talking at PTC meetings at schools and about speeding. I am guilty, they already mentioned. I got Mom's 65 Falcon up to 102 on Windsor Island Road. This was back in the 70s. So I was a guilty young teenager, but as you mentioned, we learned that was kind of stupid. And we got to convey that to our kids now, because we're not in a rural area anymore. This Kaiser was, there were cows walking down the streets when I was growing up. So it's not the same, and we're having these problems. And our police, they're doing it best they can, but, like 3 traffic officers?
I got 1 on the road right now.
Okay.
So 1 retirement and 1 prolonged injury for a bit.
So, but as Carol mentioned, it's more than just enforcement. It's talking with our neighbors, talking with our kids, working with Public Works as we get traffic improvements and money for sidewalks and things. You used to really be able to speed on Chamawa up past Verdant, but the traffic circle slowed some people down. So little things like that over time, I think, but we, as citizens of Kaiser, have to be, as you're doing right now, diligent and keep saying, we need this, we need this. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Arden Giovannini, did I get that right?
Yeah.
All right.
Very good, not enough people can say that.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for allowing us to speak and to wish you a happy day before Valentine's Day. I hope everybody has plans to do something with someone on Valentine's Day. My name is Marty Giovannini. I'm a Kaiser resident since 1982. I'm on the Southeast Kaiser Neighborhood Association Board, and for about 2 years, my second year. And what we do is promote and share neighborly camaraderie and also address concerns, which is why I'm here tonight, and I think Ken's going to come up and speak to it as well. Some residents are living on Clearview. I don't live on Clearview, but residents have, out of frustration and concern, expressed their concerns regarding issues related to parking in pedestrian and bike lane zones on Clearview Avenue. There are no parking signs, but the lanes on both sides of the roads are clearly marked for bicycle and walking. The concern is there's consistent parking in those lanes. The issue with that is there's a lot of kids on that street, and there's bicyclists and pedestrians, and when the cars are parked on there, either the whole thing or part of it, then kids and or people have to go out of the side of that. And Clearview is another area. I've also heard there's kind of speeding down there at times. So they're concerned about the health and safety and welfare of kids, but also of themselves, especially if you're on a bike. And they were just frustrated and concerned, heard about us, came to us, and just to share with us their concern regarding that. So I wanted to present that to you. Ken will talk more about as well, just so it's out there and you know that there is. In terms of anticipating maybe Dan asking what are the things that I can do or we can do about that, we are ready. SIGNA, as the other neighborhood associations, are very active in our communities, going out door to door, having monthly meetings, if not more often, having picnics, barbecues, lunches as often as we can to bring neighborhoods together, but also to address concerns and issues and get them to come to the meetings so they can address them as a neighborhood. On this road, just at 5:30 before I came here, I went down the road just to check and see. And there were 20 plus cars parking on the road at some level inside of the zone, the bicycle zones. They try, I guess, to park off of it, but off of it towards the property line, which is about 3 feet, means they're still on that zone, if not half, maybe more. And at 5:30, 20 cars, but when everybody gets home around 6 or 6:30, there's a lot more, and that's pretty standard from what we hear. So we're just bringing it up in terms of recommendations. I was trying to think of that. There's no park that I saw or am aware of. There's no parking signs on there, so maybe some no parking signs on there would help, although you would think that they would get that message without the signs. And possibly, and I don't know, again, how the police work with this, but issuing at least some kind of citation, or not citation, but warning on the window of the cars. So maybe that might help get rid of a few, other than what we're going to try to do with neighborhood associations, try to promote that within the neighborhoods.
Have you noticed a difference with the abandoned vehicles being removed from all those areas? Because I can say, I know Officer Powell's been very active on Clear.
Oh, that's good to know, okay.
Removing multiple vehicles over some time.
That, I would imagine, that does make a difference.
It's been noticed.
Yeah, oh, okay, good, yeah. Yeah, thanks for letting me know, I didn't know that.
Mr. Chair?
It's still pretty bad. There's still concerns, but that's good to know, because if they do speak to us, we can at least address that.
Okay, Hirsch?
I just want to ask Public Works, Clear Lake, is that a bike lane or a multi-use
Clear View. Off of Cherry. It's just a designated bike lane, and there's legends marked both off of Cherry and also off of, I think, Brooks.
So
that is.
the
So
enforcement is,
without signage, you can't park there. It's just a given. It's
Perfect.
against the law to
Good,
park in the
good.
bicycle lane.
Yeah,
And I
know that, you know that, but they may know that too, yeah, but.
So when I can bike, that is part of my bike commute. And the only reason why I haven't gotten burned up about it, because I do see it, is because at least the times I'm going in the morning and the evening, there's not a whole lot of traffic. Of course, I don't live there, so, and I do know there are a lot of kids because I do see them walking to school in the morning. And there's no sidewalks, and even on Brooks, there's not much safe walking there. So, again, I think it's a combination of education and infrastructure.
and a little bit of enforcement.
And a little bit of enforcement.
Which we appreciate the enforcement that there is.
I was wondering, do you have a sense of, is this mostly neighborhood residents who are parking there, or is it?
I don't know exactly, but I would say probably.
And I was,
some of them have been there a long time.
And to your point about maybe it not being marked as no parking, my experience has been is that if you don't expressly preclude parking, people will park.
Yeah.
And so that may be something that does need to be thought about in terms of some specific notification that parking is not permitted there.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. Are there a lot of bike riders that go through there that are trying to use those bike
I don't know. The citizens expressed the concern, assuming they have kids or bikes, otherwise they wouldn't be that concerned. Also, there are a lot of, I don't know about bicyclists, but there's a lot of kids there, and it's a bike lane, but that's kind of a safety walk lane as well. So answer that.
I guess where I'm going with this is, are there some streets in Kaiser that have bike lanes on them that maybe should not have a bike lane?
That I don't know.
I would say to that question that, as you said, it is the default sidewalk too.
Yeah.
Again,
So bike lane or not, it's a default sidewalk. Yeah.
county
A lot of
roads and become a city, and now we need sidewalks, and the city over time has tried to compensate with things, and then we end up people parking on it.
All right, well, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next would be Ken Geertoff.
Try that again. I want to hear it.
Geertoff, did I get that right? Was I way off on that one?
Is it L?
You're wrong.
Oh, it does look like a T.
Close enough.
Oh, it looks like a T to me.
It
Yeah,
must have been a handwriting.
little squiggle on that R made it look like a T. So if you could state your name and city of residence?
My name's Ken Gerloff. I'm a resident of Southeast Kaiser, Arnold Street to be exact. Speaking of those parking lanes, my observation, they're mostly commuters. They disappear mostly during the day, show up after hours. Including at the east end, there's a large utility truck with a bucket, on it that goes well out into the lane of traffic. My frustration is I took it to code enforcement. They're off at 4:30. Traffic shows up at 5:30, so there was a issue in trying to get some kind of enforcement going there. As a neighborhood association, we were active before. We worked with the police department. We would take license number. They would give us an address. We would write a letter to them as a concerned citizens to make them aware of their problem before we took any enforcement action. So we alleviated some of their work and most of the time got the job done. So I could volunteer to do that. They were talking about speeding solutions. I found a couple of unique ones. One was a flash bulb in an old camera. You're surprised when someone goes speeding by if you just go flash. They'll back up and ask you sometimes. But they started slowing down about a block from my house, and I did that for a while. So I got the result at my end of the street anyway. It was kind of unique, and probably not. It was good citizen participation. The other thing we used to do is we used to have an extra radar gun we used to give the citizens, and the same thing. We get a speed, a license number, we get an address, we'd write a letter saying, your car was seen such and such a date at such and such a speed, sign it, citizens again. Hopefully we got some parent getting it, find some son speeding through the neighborhood they didn't know about, and we got some results maybe. Those are two things we used to do times past. We still have a large concern with the BB Arnold Street corner there. Last year we got no parking on BB on the northwest side, but we didn't take it around the corner far enough, and we have a car now that parks 45 degrees on the corner right, nose up to the sign, which kind of blocks that very narrow intersection, which is a real clutch point with kids coming through the park from school, filtering through those parked cars to get to parents, and then having this pinch where you can't see around the corner, or you're going through blind. There's only room for one lane of traffic. You can't get two cars to pass. Someone's got to back up. So we need that continued distance on Arnold Street, so we at least have one parking spot for visibility around the corner. And that would eliminate a lot of problems. And it's just been an extension of the no parking we already have. We had permission from the homeowner that he didn't care. No parking all the way around. It didn't concern him, so we could take it back as far as we need with his permission. At least when we did the one, he was with that. I haven't talked to him since. We had good success with the blinking sign that used to be on Rickman that says your speed is, and we put that over there by the Elks Club on that corner where we had a visibility, and then disappeared. And you know what? We got a problem again. You took away the solution. I find that to be problematic. If you give us a solution, I'd like it to stay. Or find another one. But we just took away what was working for us a little bit, and it went away. So that's problematic for us. I still have a problem personally. This is not through the neighborhood association. We haven't talked about it. Basketball hoops. There's a black one down here in Rickman, about halfway on the street. I clip about once a week, leaving here in the dark. It's absolutely black. There's no reflection. It's just, it's a hazard. I see that through a lot of Southeast Kaiser in different spots. I heard your argument at council, arguing with, trying to figure out what in use was and all there are problems in some areas. Cul-de-sacs might be appropriate. Streets are for cars. And we have a speeding problem on going through the schools there, going from Cherry Avenue to the schools. And there's a crosswalk about halfway. If I was to make a suggestion for a calming, do a hump like we do at the school, just a little calming device. You can go over at speed and it doesn't jar you like some speed bumps do. But it delineate that crosswalk there, which is highly used by the school and people in the neighborhood, and maybe slow that long stretch into one little slowdown and maybe not so fast.
Marty, what school's close by there?
What's that?
What school is close by there?
School is probably
Claggett Creek
3 blocks.
Is it Claggett Creek Middle School?
Claggett Creek Middle.
Weddle Elementary?
Yeah, and they have one of those humps going through the school that delineates their crosswalk there. Something similar to that, mid-street there at Brooks, where we already have a crosswalk delineated, would be a nice, thing that would help the neighborhood, I think, with the speeding a little bit.
Any comments, questions? Okay, well, thank you. As to the basketball thing, I don't know. I know the council passed that.
There's an ordinance that was passed regarding basketball hoops and sidewalks and in the road, and they should be marked.
It's clear as mud.
They should be marked with reflective tape on the sides if they are in the street. So that is something that could go to code enforcement if that's a problem.
Okay. All right, well, that's it for the list except for,
Somebody just came in.
We have a couple people that came in later.
Okay.
So I told them to raise their hand when it is.
all right, ma'am, and if you could state your name and city of residence?
Good afternoon or evening, you guys. Thank you for doing this very important service to us folks in Kaiser, which is traffic safety, bikeways, and pedestrian. Very sad to hear about last night or the couple nights ago where we had a person lose their life. My name is Breda Libby. I've been here since 1997. I live on Aspana Avenue over in the Shoreline area. Two things I'd like to talk about is addressing the arterial thing. We have a lot of speeding going on down Shoreline now. And the really sad part is it seems to have ratcheted a lot of the people that used it as a bikeway. I see less and less bikers on that particular street of Shoreline. And I'm very saddened by that because I think that is a very important thing that our community encourages that kind of, bike riding, pedestrian walking thing. But now Shoreline is like River Road. And I understand people want to get home quicker. They want to they use that street more. And I think the eventuality is probably putting a traffic circle right there at Chemawa and Shoreline. I think that that's something that we should be looking forward to. Like you said, it kind of closed down a lot of the traffic on Chemawa when you guys put that, traffic circle in there. And we know that area is going to grow more. So it's kind of time to start looking forward to that. I'm going to address Aspana here real quick. On that particular street, it dead ends into 10th place. There is only 14 houses on that little stretch of area that's served. I have seen people come around, coming off of Ventura or going from Raphael. They're taking a cut through that neighborhood and coming up Aspana. I've seen people on two wheels. There is a stop sign there, and when we had our neighborhood association meeting or neighborhood night out, I talked to the police officer that was so kind to come and talk to us. Nobody obeys that stop sign. You guys might as well come and take it out because nobody is stopping. They are like flying through there. The bad thing of it is on that little 10th Street is you have the cut over from the Summer Breeze area across, and you have kids constantly going through there and taking that as a cut through. So what happens is if cars are coming down Aspana, they can't see those kids that are stepping right out into the street. There's no way. We are going to have an accident, not if, but when. So it's important that we take and maybe look at that a little bit. I'm in agreement with Carol that we need more speed bumps or like you said, the little humps for cross spaces. I think this is an important thing for Kaiser to start getting ahead of. In that sense, to make it more pedestrian. That's why one of the reasons we moved here was because it was for our kids. They're all grown now, but for our children because they had a safe place to walk. They had a safe place to go to as far as I never worried about them going in our neighborhood and walking around. So these are all very important things to consider now instead of later. I think the planning thing will go a long ways with that, and I'd really like to see some planning start going to that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions?
I'm a cyclist and I use Shoreline, and that's part of the Willamette Scenic Bikeway. Correct. And last year 8,000 cyclists used it. And April 26th there will be 2,000 cyclists using it. And I'd like to thank you very much because I've already made that suggestion after the Verda and Chemawa to put it down at the other end. I live off of Willow Lake. Yeah. So I know what you're talking about. Our neighborhood is building. I'm in a brand new development back there. So it would Yeah, and I know the Public Works Director is aware of that because we talked about it here, is a traffic circle at both ends.
I think it would be really wise to do it now while we have the space to do it, and before it's going to cost us even more money. I think that's very important. I agree with you totally. And
It's just a matter of getting the money, because you have to get ODOT money, and that's allocated all over the state, so we're competing. So those kind of things do take time.
Well, Portland probably cough up some money.
Portland would?
Portland could probably cough up some money for us.
Oh, right, yeah.
I'm just saying. Anyway,
Thank you very much.
I agree with you totally that it's time to start doing some of these things that are going to make our city livable for a long time. And our city is a beautiful little town. It is a gem, and people really enjoy living here, and the community is fabulous. And so it'd be great if we could do that. Another thing, just real quick on the bicycle thing, I actually talked to people. This is like I said, it is a very important bikeway. I talked to people that were from Norway that had specifically came here to ride that trail. So it's a great thing.
And it's great economically.
Yes, money brings in money. Thank you so much for
I
your
was
time.
just going to point out that back when they redid that intersection at Chemawa and Shoreline, I don't know how many years ago was that? 10. No, I was here already. Well, anyway, I brought up why could we have put a roundabout there, and I was told, oh, there's not enough demand for it there, or not enough traffic demand.
There's that forward-looking thinking. We know that area is going to do nothing but grow.
Yeah.
So it's time to put those things in places. I think that's where we miss the mark, is by not planning for the eventuality that we're a growing city.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else that has not signed up but would like to speak? Come on up. Please state your name and city of residence.
Thank you. My name is Wes Jackson, and I live in Kaiser, West Kaiser, and I'm here tonight representing both myself and my wife. Our focus is on the 3800 block of Fifth Avenue North, as most of you already know, perhaps not Jamie. That is an area where there's the holiday pool, and there's also an entrance into the park. And part of that area does have sidewalks, but part does not, part of that block. And so our issue with traffic there is something that David Dempster and Hirsch Sangster spoke to earlier, which is pedestrians near cars as they're traveling down there, and how traffic moving at what may seem a legal speed is not necessarily a safe speed. And all due respect to Kaiser PD, but the problem is continuing, and it does seem worse during rush hours, school rush hours and work rush hours. And so it's this problem of speed exacerbated by the fact that the lack of sidewalks. And so I support what they were saying earlier about the need for keeping the pedestrians and the cars apart, as well as supporting ways to deal with the speed issues. My preference is not to require Kaiser PD to perform more enforcement. As we all know, their hours are better spent doing other things than dealing with issuing tickets for speed. So I'm strongly in favor of passive means of addressing speed. And I agree with what Carol was saying earlier, that it's not necessarily speed bumps, although that's one of the first things that does come to mind. My wife says that Albany has used speed bumps a lot and has been able to achieve some measure of speed reduction by using them. I'm not as familiar with that myself. there's also been arguments that we haven't seen a problem in that block. No children have been injured, no vehicle accidents, but I think it's short-sighted that we look at it that way. We need to address a problem when we see that there is a problem before an injury or something worse. And so I just encourage this group to keep in mind as we're looking around the city, maybe it's speed bumps, but we do need to do something in that area. There's also a need for ADA access into the park. And so there's a lot in that one block that needs to be looked at. It's not a one thing. We did get some curbs painted, and that's been great. We're very happy that the curbs were painted to move the parked cars back from the corner so you have some visibility getting out of Honeysuckle onto Fifth Avenue. But that's only the start, and we've got more to accomplish. Question?
I just want to, I cringe anytime somebody sees a speed bump being as a cyclist. However, what you're saying is traffic calming devices.
Absolutely.
And there are many available, including trees.
Yes, all the
lining a street with trees gives a narrowing effect on us humans when we're moving and we slow down. So depending on the area, bulb outs of the sidewalks, all sorts of ideas. So I just want to, when you say speed bumps, remember us cyclists, we don't like them. But we understand what you're trying to do. And there are specialized speed bumps. And if you ever want to see some really good ones for a cycling is on Maple Street in Salem. Because that's now the new Bike Boulevard area, and they put them in that gives us places to go as cyclists. And it slows down the street. So Salem has, and those are brand new, those were just put in last year.
And I've said before, so I'll say it again, if we're relying on enforcement, then that means there's a problem that we're not addressing. One, we don't have the people, and two, it means that there's a design problem with the street. So.
Yes.
All right. Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Jackson, the painting of the curbs, do you think that made a difference? Was that a positive difference?
Absolutely.
Have you really noticed a difference, I guess?
Absolutely. Immediately noticed that it was much easier getting in and out of Honeysuckle. But of course, that's only one of the factors that I think needs to be addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Hey, is there anyone else who has not signed that would like to speak? Seeing none, we will bring up our other guests, Mike Jaffe and McRae Carmichael. Thank you, and thank you for your patience. And thank you for everyone who's come tonight also to speak.
Good evening, Mike Jaffe. I'm with the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. I'm a transportation professional for 25 years.
McRae Carmichael. I am the new Safe Routes to Schools coordinator with the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, focusing on Salem-Keizer School District.
So we're primarily here just to give you a brief update about the Safe Routes to School program. Before I get into that, I'd just like to make a few comments about all the testimony I heard just now by your citizens. Our organization is very involved in Keizer, as some of you know, and provided a lot of infrastructure projects. So the federal funds that we get as a metropolitan planning organization is shared among the area, Salem, Keizer, the urban part of Marion County and Turner. So the projects you see over the last 10 years, a lot of them came from the federal funds. The roundabout at Verda and Chemawa was a federal project. Chemawa Road was a joint federal, state, and local project to Keizer Rapids Park. before my time. Chamala Road here, I think, was funded with some federal funds, and Cherry Avenue, I think at one time didn't have sidewalks. Parrish, you probably remember that.
Yes, it had
I think that was in the 80s or early 90s, a little before I got here. So a lot of those projects were federal funded projects, and just to bring you up to date, we recently kicked off, I should say the city recently kicked off a project for Verta Lane, from where the sidewalk ends near Alder, or just a little north of Alder, all the way up to Dearborn, where that project is going to get sidewalks on both sides. And the design for that is now being started. And then looking forward, we have funds to help with a study on Wheatland Road, to say what should be the design for Wheatland Road. What kind of facilities do you want on that street? Do you want sidewalks and bike lanes? What kind of bike lanes? How wide? Do you want medians? Do you not want medians? Do you want a shared path? Do you want crossings? Where do you want those crossings? So that work, I think, also is about to get. I think the RFP might be being developed, but there is work looking in Kaiser, looking in the future. So I heard people say, we should look to the future. Well, we are helping Kaiser look to the future for all these important streets. So we're very interested in safety, and I just wanted to make that comment. There are sources of funds for small projects. So I can talk to your staff about that, but ODOT is stepping up on safety projects, especially around schools. They're about to start another cycle of safe routes to school infrastructure projects where they actually do build sidewalks or crossings. And I'm talking to your staff about them. I just updated Bill Lawyer and other people about that, which will be coming up this summer. So there is hope. There's not a lot of money, but there is some money, and there's hope to get that money. And I'll do everything I can to help both Salem, Kaiser, and my area get some of those funds. But we're really here to talk about another program, which is the Safe Routes to School kind of education and encouragement side of Safe Routes to School. I helped form a steering committee about 2 years ago. We met for a while, met with the school district, city staff, other people like Hirsch from the bike club, and we formed a steering committee, as I mentioned, and we applied for a grant, a state grant for a Safe Routes to School coordinator. We were successful in getting a $300,000 grant for 3 years. Hopefully we'll extend that grant out for another 3 years, so 6 years. And as McCrae will tell you, we've started work. She was just hired in January to be the coordinator for the Salem-Kaiser area. So I don't want to steal all her thunder, but we're getting started on Safe Routes to School, where we can educate the students on safety. We can hopefully teach them on safe walking, safe biking. But not only that, a child can help educate a parent about being safe driving. So I know in Eugene, they have this program as part of their Safe Routes to School, where they have these sandwich boards at the schools where the parents drop off their kids. And it's reminding the parents, about not texting while they're driving or slowing down. And so that little voice in the back seat that says, Mom, Dad, put down your phone, or Mom, Dad, the speed is 25 here, or 20 or whatever, can be one way to get to the other people in your community. So I can go on and on, but I'll stop there. And I want to introduce McCrae to go over a little bit about the Safe Routes to School program, especially in Kaiser.
So our grant started or is piloting 5 schools and 2 are in Kaiser. So it's Auburn, Cummings, Hallman, Hoover, Kennedy, sorry. I was like, did I already say Kennedy? I'm sorry, I've said them a lot recently. So what the intention is with those 5 schools, and those 5 schools actually were selected for a whole host of reasons, but partially they've already had different kinds of programming or interest for safe routes, whether intended or not, to get to the space where I am now. There's already been a lot of activity, particularly at your schools here in Kaiser. At Cummings and Kennedy, I've met with the principals and the staff and the CSOCs, different staff at the schools. I was able to attend Cummings PTC meeting last night, so getting to know the parents. I'm attending all those meetings. Can you hear me well? Sorry. I'm attending all those just to just to get my face out there, get the program started, and get connected, because the essence of this program should really come from the community, not me. I am here to be a resource and support and help coordinate and bring the voice of what the various communities want. So we're here tonight to hear the broader view, right? And get connected so you all can be a resource and help me understand different community members and assets and things that are going on that I don't know about and that we'll learn about. So can I answer any questions about what the plan will look like, what I'm doing over the next year? There's all sorts of opportunities. I'd be happy to schedule coming again and talking more. Yes, Wayne.
Mike mentioned the infrastructure grant applications process is starting. Do you happen to know the dates on that, of when people could start entering grant applications? Or
I don't know the specific date, so I think I heard that letters of intent would be first, and I think that was April. Nothing formal has been put out there. The committee, the advisory committee, I should say a statewide advisory committee for Safe Routes to School, just to give the formal name, just met again on Monday to discuss more about the process for the application and what the criteria are and scoring, et cetera. So they haven't released anything officially, but the unofficial schedule would be a letter of intent, probably in April, with applications probably starting in the 1st of June and going through August. They're going to have workshops throughout the state. We're going to have one workshop at our offices in May, and I'll make sure that people in Kaiser and everywhere in our communities know about that, so they can know, hey, what kind of projects can I apply for, and is there a limit? Yes, there's a dollar limit, and what are the criteria? So everyone's on the same field or same playing field as far as knowledge about what kind of projects are going to be selected or at least evaluated.
Is it a conflict of interest, or is McCray, are you able to assist us with grant applications?
There's no conflict of interest. As the Council of Governments, we're happy to assist you with grant applications. You know,
That's what they do. I'm very involved with the Mid-Willamette Valley COG.
Right, okay.
So definitely know your predecessor, Sean O'Day, and everything. He's been very interested with the city of Kaiser and helping out there too. If we wanted to, I probably could help us find somebody to help us write the grants up too. They definitely have people they can reach out to.
That would be great.
You know.
I mean, to circle back, the component for the infrastructure is that we want to, is safe routes, that it highlights or targets around schools and improvements that would benefit schools.
Clearly, we've identified, Cummings is going to be getting some improvements because we missed out on the grant, but the city was able to come up with some money to finish all the way to McNary with a facility, but Kennedy's still in need. And that's going to be your funnest school, is going to be Kennedy.
They all have a lot of dynamic and are exciting places, definitely.
Can I just say here that one component of doing this type of work is to have an action plan for every school that you are working with. So an action plan for Cummings, an action plan for Kennedy, and the other three. And these action plans cover many things. One is, how do you encourage kids to walk and bike? What kind of programs do you have? But it's also, what are the facility improvements that you need around the school area? So once we start developing action plans, we want to involve the parents, the principals, the city staff in helping us determine, it's like think of it as a mini plan. You have a city transportation system plan. Think of this as a mini plan for every school area. And, where do you need a sidewalk? Where do you need a crossing? Where do you need maybe a signal or lighting? Identify those things, agree on them, so that when these opportunities for funding come along, you're not starting from scratch. You can go look in that plan and say, look, this is what we needed around Cummings or around Kennedy.
More to make a comment. I really appreciate the fact that you represent money, but somebody's money other than ours. But I do want to point out that there are other sources besides the federal government and the state government. One is the city council has not anywhere near the size amounts, but does have, you guys come up with the paint last year to paint the curbs, right? So, but there are pieces of that. We came up with 3 gallons of paint, I know, yeah. Which we really appreciated. But the point is, the city has not only a responsibility, but does have some funds that might be able to be made available. And this wasn't in this city, but the others, our city neighborhoods could, I can't even remember the process we went through, but I remember it had to do with voting, but we ended up taxing ourselves to get streetlights or, and we can do that, I believe, within the city.
You're talking about a local improvement district?
Yes, and so if you had everybody in an area, they could form a local improvement area and tax themselves, and somebody would get it done. I don't know exactly how it works, but I know it's possible. So.
Yeah, no, and that's what's valuable is to learn about different strategies that we can tap to when we're being creative and thinking about how we can get things done. So it's great.
Ms. Carmichael, I think you indicated that your focus is going to be on the education and encouragement components.
Well, there are 6 components.
There are 6 E's, yes.
Yeah, the 6 E's. So there's the education, there's the encouragement, there's the engineering, there's the equity, there's evaluation, my brain is...
And enforcement.
And enforcement. So really, the steering committee that Mike referenced, where I've called on that group to come back again. We want to have enforcement with Kaiser and with the city of Salem, and potentially even Marion County, with our interface of schools that have several different roads that lead. The focus will really be at each school what we complete with the action plan, what we form as the guide, and what needs to happen. Like if we're finding that a community is saying, there is so much speeding that happens in front of our school, or we have all these like on Delight by Cummings, there are cars parked up and down that street, and how it's impacting kids' abilities to move safely and cars to move safely. If we need to have some sort of supported enforcement, we will do that, and we'll figure out the program on how we do that. But the encouragement would be hosting activities similar to some of the stuff that Hirsch and the Salem Bike Club and maybe others I just am new have participated in at the schools with doing bike skills and bike rodeos. Having things like walking school buses or walking Wednesdays, where we'd have staff or parents or a volunteer potentially just walk that program. Have different folks that would meet along a corridor and walk kids in. But these are just things that have worked at other schools, and we might get creative on what our individual schools need. But there is the education too, going into the classroom either through PE or individual classrooms and doing education about for K through 2 about street safety and stop, look, and listen, those components, how to walk safely, and then in-class education and curriculum, and then bringing kids out and practicing that on the street in a controlled, safe environment, and bike safety to teach kids how to ride, how to put a helmet on safely, what a helmet on your head. We've all seen helmets that are back here on someone's head. I saw a gentleman earlier who had his hood on because it was so cold outside, but then his helmet on top. I was like, that helmet is nowhere on your head right now. I get it, but all those pieces. Does that help answer your question?
It does, and we recently all received copies of the Safe Routes to School Policy Workbook, which includes a number of recommended policies for districts and individual schools to adopt. Do you anticipate that being kind of part of this process, the individual schools?
I've seen so far. Do you want to speak to it?
I know there's a plethora of safe routes to school material out there. You could probably stack something up all the way to the ceiling with it. I'm not familiar with the policy workbook specifically.
This is from Change Lab Solutions, the Safe Routes Partnership.
Yeah. There are lots of good organizations all over the country that put out these kind of materials. And it's great to get inspired by them and see what works around the other parts of the country. I think the thing is we have to figure out what works here best. And we want to walk before we run. So we want to, start with these schools. We're learning about how to do this. We've never done this before ourselves, but there's examples all over the state that we could network with, and we are network with those people. But it's going to be a process of learning for us and a process of learning for the schools we work with. And we'll have some successes and hopefully not too many failures and build on those successes. The nice thing about this process is instead of it being kind of piecemeal, this school doing something on its own, some other school doing something on its own, which is great, but we do have full support of the school district. We've had many meetings with the school district administration about this program. So it's not like we are flying under the radar and doing these out with schools. They are fully supportive. They're providing some funds for this program, about $10,000 a year, and other resources. So hopefully we're walking arm in arm together down this path, and we're just taking the first couple steps.
I know you're just getting your feet wet in here. Have you or will you in the near future be going to all the schools, or are you just going to focus this year on the 5 that you were mentioning?
So the way the grant is that these 5 schools, I'm doing, so there's components, like we're going to do student tallies, and that's just in the classroom, the teacher's asking, how'd you get to school today? And that gets us the baseline information of what these kids are doing. Then we'll do parent surveys to get the feedback of what are barriers that perceived barriers from parents of the choices they make on how their kids get to school. So, and from that, we'll go from there and do the action plan. I'm planning on attending at all of these schools. There are literacy events. All these schools are Title I, and so there's particular events they do in the evening. So I plan to be at every event that I can be at to reach parents and start talking about their community and this program. So to answer your question, I'm starting with the 5 with this very targeted focus and energy with the goal, very soon I'm going to be meeting with all the elementary principals, Mike and I will be, just to be introducing the program so that they can, hopefully we plant the seeding and get the program well known throughout the district. And that they can reach out and say, I want to start having this program, I want to learn about it, and that we'll have a roadmap. So our goal is to have it be district-wide information. I mean, I've heard about, I think this is really unique up in Beaverton. They, last year, I think they have 35 elementaries. They had 31 sign up for International Walk Day. It's the first Wednesday in October. And that's just a program, that you celebrate. You encourage the kids prior to that day. You put things in place and you encourage it. And I would love, and I think we're capable to put that call out here for Salem Keizer to let the information be known to our whole school district. Like, here are these days that we're doing, but my effort will be specific immediately.
Right.
Yeah, but we're not going to not provide information and support and resource to any school that's interested in learning about the program.
So there's 42 elementary schools in Salem Keizer, and then there's the middles and high schools. That's a lot of schools to cover.
Yeah.
And so we're starting with these 5.
Yeah.
We're focusing on these 5 and developing action plans and trying to do some specific programs with them. And then we have a phase 2 with 3 others. But meanwhile, we hope to provide some information to almost any school that wants to know about safe routes to school. We can't work with them as directly as those first 5, but at least it'll put a spark, and maybe they'll ask the school district, can we expand the program? Mm-hmm. We're hoping to do it for 6 years. Maybe we could hire a second coordinator down the road. Eugene Springfield, which is about the same size as Salem Keizer, they have 3 safe routes to school coordinators plus 1 regional one. So we're going to need something like that to really cover the whole area. And even they don't have all the schools signed up. They struggle to cover that many schools. But you gotta start somewhere, right? So.
Yes. So you gave out a lot of information in a very short amount of time. What really piqued my interest was the educational aspect of it. You talked about getting law enforcement involved as far as Marion County, Salem, or Kaiser. Is that something that's going to be occurring very soon where you reach out to that aspect?
Yeah, it's such a big program. There's so many aspects to it. We just haven't reached out to Kaiser Police. We've done a little bit with the Salem Police Department. There's many ways to involve the police, and we want to make sure when we reach out, we are doing things that the police departments are comfortable with doing. So I think we should get together and talk about, our ideas, what
Kaiser would be very interested in the educational aspect.
Sure.
As far as being involved in.
Great.
Thank you.
In our grant, we talk a little bit about enforcement. We have some funds for enforcement. We might discuss that part of it as well down the road. A little bit of grant money for enforcement, and how that would actually work, yet to be determined. So, but it's something I think all those things help. The engineering helps, the encouragement helps, enforcement helps. Education helps. All those E's. So.
Some of the things that the Kaiser and Salem Police have done as far as the bike education. Last year, Kaiser Officer Wampler at Kennedy at their bike and scoot event, which we thought was going to be maybe 10 or 12 kids, turning out to be 250. He helped, when we did the route, he helped us, for security and safety, and then talking with the kids. He helped fit a helmet or two. With Salem, the bike events we've had, their bike cops, we would have them go through the bike skills event in classroom, and then they would lead a neighborhood bike ride.
Yeah.
So the police we tried to include them in a way that's very positive for everybody.
Yeah.
And we'll find out different things from different schools.
Right.
I think some of the schools in East Salem, when they've done parent surveys, the few that they've done, the concern is safety around the schools. Parents don't feel it's safe. It's a safe neighborhood to walk, the kids to walk, so they drive them to school. So safety is multi-component, right? It's both. Is it safe because of traffic? Is it safe because of crossings? Is it just an unsafe neighborhood you're walking through? So how you integrate enforcement and law enforcement depends on the location.
You've mentioned developing action plans for each of these schools. Is that a discrete component of this? And do you have a sense of how long that portion of this project is going to take?
I anticipate, or?
Well, like I said,
I'm happy to go.
Go ahead. Tell me your plan.
My goal is to have our action plans completed by the beginning of the school year next year. I think it's easy on target. We've had walking audits at both Kennedy and Cummings. And they have pretty good data, but I still am really interested, like I talked about the literacy events and just different events that are being hosted at the schools, really getting to the population of parents and staff that are there now. I mean, I feel like there's already been a lot of work at all these schools that I could just pick up that data and run and go and say, I'm going to do an action plan with this. But I want to make sure that the new voices to the school, either they're coming in younger or new to Kennedy and Cummings, that we reach to. So.
Very good. Well, I think we'd all be interested in seeing those when they're developed.
Yeah, I would love to share and get feedback.
Back in 2010, Salem and Marion County had something called Bike Walk Salem, and they focused on infrastructure needs around schools within the Salem urban growth boundary. Kaiser wasn't part of that, but we've got some information to do action plans from that information. And with Kaiser, with Kennedy and Cummings, we'll be working with your staff, and the schools. So, and enforcement.
Well, I just have two comments. I understand where you're getting with this failure thing, Mike, but I think it's good to try as much as you can and if you fail, hopefully it wasn't spending a lot of money and no one got hurt, but
Yeah.
at least you know what didn't work and you were trying to push the envelope, so.
And I'm sorry to use the word failed, because I think it's a learning opportunity.
Absolutely.
It's probably a better thing. I think we all could say we've learned a lot from our so-called failures, right? So,
Well, and if we're setting goals, it's really a matter of like, if we want to, what we're wanting to increase. If it's the number of kids riding or walking, if we don't meet that goal, then going back and looking and saying, well, what was the barrier? What did we just, was that not realistic, or did we just not provide the right tools to be successful? So that's where that evaluation comes in, to help us just continue to improve and be able to bring that to other schools.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
thank you for your time.
All right, have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on. I do appreciate everyone coming and talking. Some of our meetings can be very lonely here. So moving on to our project reports. We don't have anything for the first one. Wayne is desperately looking for something. And so I could bring this up. I think I will bring it up because Wayne, since he was interested in doing something, I did find on the ODOT webpage, they have a community paths program. And it is a grant program that is new, that is dedicated to helping communities create and maintain connections through multi-use paths. And they will use monies from the State Multimodal Active Transportation Fund and federal transportation funds to complement existing transportation programs in the communities. So if you would like to dive deeper into that.
Sure. I might need whatever reference you have.
I will send you that, and perhaps we can, if not fill gaps that we have, maybe tie millions of dollars, including all the millions that the city has, to do new multi-use paths. Okay, Stephen, we volunteered you for the citywide missing link neighborhood connectivity. Do you have anything to report?
Just briefly, I met with Kathy Lincoln to effect a handoff of the project, and she provided me with materials that she had and some interesting suggestions. I think one of the things she pointed out was the importance of and this may also tie in, Wayne, with the project you've taken on, is identifying these areas where there are missing connections. Now, a lot of this links into the city's transportation system plan, which has identified a lot of these areas of difficulty. And so I think finding out that plan was developed in 2009, so I don't know who would be the appropriate body or person to inquire about what progress has been made on that plan since that time, but I think that would be useful. Kathy also suggested the focus being on South Kaiser, sort of the south of Lock Haven area, where we have the biggest gaps in sidewalks, paths, et cetera, and connectivity to River Road. And so I'll be studying what she provided with me, also the city plan, and working from there.
Okay. Mike or Debbie?
Well, I was just asking Mike, and he hasn't heard anything, but Bill, you're right, the transportation system plan is old, and it is time to get it renewed or to have it reviewed. And I believe that the plan is for Public Works to have that in the budget next year. I think either next year or the following fiscal year. They'll have to. It's expensive, very expensive to do. So has to get a consultant, and but it is in the works. It's in the headlights.
In the headlights, I like that.
Well, very good. So, Mike, I might be in touch with you to just kind of see what's happening and where things are.
That'll be good.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay, next is me. Been a little out of it this month, so I haven't gotten anything to report. Hirsch, how about you?
I'd like to add, I'm on the Safe Routes to School Steering Committee, so I'd like to add that as the duty. That way I can report back to this committee on what's going on with McRae's projects.
Okay.
The additional bike repair station, we're moving ahead. This was a bike repair station that was at the transit center downtown that they removed and put in storage for surplus. Working with Trip Choice, we got Kaiser's name on it, and a week ago I used to work for government and everything, and it was in their storeroom, and I was getting a little worried that if you leave something in a storeroom too long, it gets moved, whatever. So it's in my garage. in Kaiser. And we want to install it at Kennedy. The principal's all for it. Kennedy and the Boys and Girls Club. The only issue that's going on is they're going to be starting their remodel project this summer, so we don't know exactly where we want to put it. And if we do a temporary, that's going to cost a little bit, but with private funds and donations, we'll be able to do it. But the rack itself's in good shape. It's bright red, so it's not actually the colors of Kennedy, but it's going to be there. So, and that will help serve that section of our community. So I have it. The school district knows that it's there, and it's just a matter of timing and when we can do it. And it'll again tie in with McRae's project of working at Kennedy, because we'll have that there.
All right. Jamie, so if you have any projects, let me just ask.
She was saying that she would help with the Safe Routes to School, right?
I did.
Okay.
I think that would be a great project for her.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I will.
We will put her down on the list. Sorry, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Sangster, what do you think the cost to temporarily mount that would be?
I don't know, but I'm just speculating $1,200 maybe. Yeah, it's on the high end.
Okay. Is this something set in concrete? Is that what you mean, or?
Movable concrete.
Let's talk later about
that. They're not ready for it at the school right now, but principal's all behind this. And
thank you.
Okay. All right.
In the McNary project for the bike rack is on hold till the majority of the project for the remodel around McNary is done, and then it's a go. I talked with the principal at the dinner the other night, and clearly we're on. I gave my 2 cents about that bike rack's been there since 1972, so.
Okay. Well, then we'll move on to committee member input.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, certainly.
Do we have any lists of where in the residents are more than 1 mile long of road to possibly address and have a list of these concerns? I was kind of shy earlier. I actually live off of Manbrin and the Cherry and the Brooks area, so I do know what they're talking about. And there is 2 areas that probably, one seems to be, it looks like it needs a light there. I'd have to look exactly on the crossroads. I know it's Manbrin and Brooks. Yeah, it's Manbrin and Brooks. Just the way they come across around that corner is a little too fast. And then the Brooks line, I do know that is a pretty long street, and some safety on that road would be helpful, because that is the main way that the middle school and elementary kids are walking to get to over there. The other question I had is, do we do any work with the reflective lights on the pavement that they're going to do on River Road? Do we have any input on that?
There's never been any reflective markers on the skip lines. The county does our striping for us, and so what happened with River Road is the county hit it twice, but with the brand new pavement, a lot of that just sucked right in, and then their truck went down, and we requested that they come back and hit it again. We're on the list to have it shot again, but the weather has not been cooperating.
Right.
But as far as those reflective pavement, stick and stomps kind of, that hasn't been something that's been talked about, so.
As to the Brooks, Mandarin Brooks curve right there. So last year, some residents came talking about that, how their kids have to cross there, and it's kind of a blind corner. And we did have a temporary flashing speed.
Yeah, that's what Ken was talking about tonight.
And again, it's one of those things like our police officers themselves. I think we just have one of that, and so we try to use it and get people to realize they're speeding, and then slow them down, and then move it to the next rough spot. And again, I know that area too because it is part of my bike commute, and it is. There are people who choose to go fast on that street, and it becomes an education thing again.
Let's see. That was my only two questions that I had tonight.
Okay.
I will.
So going down the list, the folks here, Hirsch, do you have anything for input?
The only concern, and I know you were going to bring it up, is we had another death on River Road. I'd like to see data from these various accidents for the last few years, information that we can look at, and we don't want to get into privacy or anything like that, but look at it, because in Kaiser, if you're going to be seriously injured or killed, it's going to be on River Road, whether you're cyclist, pedestrian, or motorist. So that's my two cents.
Well, I would just like to, on that is, when I saw the article, I was checking some of the comments, and, obviously people were sharing their concern, but, it's like someone commented about using the crosswalk. Well, there's not a whole lot of signalized crosswalks on River Road, and depending on the weather, people are trying to cross as fast as they can just to get out of the weather, so.
I just like to see the broad data. I don't want to make a judgment on whether or not, where are things happening? And maybe, as the group earlier said, maybe we can plan things in the future. I know we can't prevent some bad human behavior, but is that bad behavior happening all in one spot? And I just want to look at the data. I not want to say, well, we need more police or that. Just what does the data look like? Are all of our accidents in one intersection?
Well, if you'd like to answer that, I could probably throw some out for you right now, just over the last 5 years.
Perfect.
We've had.
Thank you.
We've had 9 fatal incidences.
Microphone.
So in the last 5 years, we've had 9 fatal incidences within the city. One occurred at 1800 block of Allendale. That one there happened to be an unfortunate incident where a family member actually backed over a small child in their driveway. Another one occurred at 4510, so the 4500 block of River Road, and that one actually happened to be where a pedestrian was in a controlled crosswalk area. There's nothing more we can do in a controlled intersection crosswalk. Most of those are pillar obstructions. A lot of vehicles being made these days.
Where Arby's is?
So 45. So that's River and Cummings. So that's that's right in there.
Arby's.
Yep.
Yeah.
Another one occurred at River and Sunset. This happened to be a young boy that had darted across River Road in the dark without any retroflective material or anything else like that, in somewhat of a I mean, it's kind of an unlit area. Factors that we can't control, though, are oncoming traffic with vehicle lights and everything else. And so when you start adding additional lighting that's coming at a driver, there's a lot of things that you just can't see, and you don't have a perception and responsibility, meaning that you don't have that time to react. None of these vehicles in any of these situations have been speeding. As a matter of fact, in most of our speeds have actually been below the 35 mile an hour mark. Another one that occurred at the 5,000 block of River Road, again, happened just outside the crosswalk, though. The pedestrian wasn't in the crosswalk, but was within about 10 feet of it, and he happened just to leave a safe place of refuge when he left. Again, we've had a couple of these incidences where pedestrians were believed to be under the influence and have been confirmed at the time. Then we had another one that had occurred at 732 Shamawa. So that one was more across from the little minute mark that's on Shamawa as you go towards McNary High School. That one happened to be an elderly gentleman that was crossing the road. The unfortunate incident is, as the driver was actually convicted of criminally negligent homicide. She was actually utilizing her cell phone at the time of the incident. So that was the distracted driving. Again, not a whole lot that we as a committee or an enforcement aspect besides going out and doing active enforcement with the distracted driving that we do.
Enforcement on that one.
We had another one that occurred, 900 block of Ventura North. That happened to be where a couple of subjects that were intoxicated in the vehicle. It was a family thing. One of the subjects actually fell out of the car while they were traveling, and he actually was injured for about 3 weeks and then succumbed to his injuries. So again, another one of those incidences that is just completely out of our control as far as avoidance. Another one that occurred on about the little over the 100 block of Russet Drive North, was a motorcycle versus a pickup truck. On that one there was an intoxicated motorcyclist that was traveling at a high rate of speed, and he lost that incident, unfortunately. So again, another one of those, certainly enforcement, late in the evening, but again, primary cause was the DUI in itself, and then those poor decisions that are being made. River Road in Shamawa, the most recent one that we had just a couple nights ago, unfortunately, alcohol was involved with the pedestrian. They were well outside their scope, and they happened to jump in front of a car, so to say. Again, perception reaction times just not available. The vehicle was actually going under the posted speed limit again. And so again, this is just kind of one of those, no retroflective material. I mean, in all honesty, I believe we do absolutely have an issue with how many people were actually severely hurting and killing in Kaiser. But most of it's being an educational aspect with our pedestrians and our bicyclists. Now, we've had a couple of serious injury collisions that have also happened that weren't fatals. But again, we have people that have a false sense of security when we're putting them in. Just about all of our serious injury ones that have occurred have all been within our controlled crosswalk areas, meaning we have major intersections that have control lights, and just because it says walk, we have pedestrians that believe, just because legally they have the right-of-way, that think it's a safe passage. And that's what the message we have to be able to get to our kids and our adults as far as that more self-awareness. We're not going to win the battle against another vehicle.
See, I agree with you on the education. We have an opportunity, even though it's a small one, is to work with McCrae at Kennedy and Cummings on talking about reflective.
That was why I'd addressed that, and that's one of one of
really-
our absolute main goals with our traffic safety committee. As soon as we can, or with our traffic safety unit, as soon as we can build it dialed up, so we can actually get more into the schools.
So you do have some data, you just gave us some data that supports this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, I would say that the wider the intersection, even at a controlled crossing, the more chance there is for someone to get hit. So when we're thinking about, we're going to put in another lane or another turn lane or something that's going to make, say, a 60-foot width crossing now 80 feet, there's consequences there. Even if it moves cars a little bit faster, there are consequences.
Now, I will add, I do believe we potentially have some engineering things that we could possibly do maybe near our intersections. Maybe better lighting at night near our intersections. I don't know if that's possible or not. but certainly something that we can look into. I don't know how that portion there is a little bit different than my expertise. But we also know that we do have some glare issues, that potentially some type of tree or shrubbery. But again, they're just really bad areas that I don't know if it can become safer than what it is, but certainly things that can be looked at. But again, someone that it has a different skill set than what I have. I can say what a primary cause is, I can say what a contributing factor is, solving those specific issues and being within the engineering guidelines that I can't necessarily address.
Okay. Stephen?
Nothing more.
Did you have something else?
No, I just thought Stephen had.
Really nothing new. Do have a question. Safe routes to school. Who does the education component? Is that police going into the school? Because I'm kind of thinking General John Q. Public is not really allowed on school campus.
So again, we've never been involved with the safe routes to school. That's why I was addressing that question with that.
McRae is actually going to have a school district. She's actually consultant to the school district. So she will be able to work with and do instruction in the school district. Because when I've done it, I'm coming in as a volunteer and you just don't have the same stature. So all these principals for these 5 schools want it. Linda Evans, who's kind of second command of the school district, is on the steering committee. So, and she's identified teachers within these schools that are.
Yeah, it seems like we would need someone that can go into each school, or a teacher, or safe routes to school coordinator that can educate.
Well, this is our start.
Okay, this isn't really input for me other than questioning about what happened from the last meeting. Hirsch had brought up the In-N-Out burger thing, if that was ever brought up to the In-N-Out folks about the...
It was gone.
All right, good.
At the stop sign in the bike lane. It was taken, I swear, literally within a day or so, it was gone and moved, and they moved it out into the turn lane. And it was just perfect, yeah. Well done.
Good. And I don't know if Mike will talk about this during his update, but it was also brought up about the Willow Lake Road parking, and that we had recommended Public Works look at the possible striping, so I don't know if...
I can report on that real quick. So 2 no parking signs for Willow Lake Road on the north side from the corner of Wheatland Road, 175 feet to the west, is going to be presented and given to council for consideration this coming Tuesday. So,
thank you.
It's on the agenda. Yeah, that should take care of that problem. And again, it'll be not yellow painted, but there'll be no parking signs with arrows facing in. So,
all right, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
All right. Do you have anything to input for that wasn't something we talked about?
No.
Okay.
No. Exciting stuff.
David?
Changes.
Yeah, since I was on vacation. One, it has to do with an optical illusion that looks unsafe. We've had complaints before, but if you're not familiar with Park Meadow, is that a feeder street, Park Meadow? Anyway, it goes through the neighborhood. It's the one everybody takes. It's the main street through there. Right up at the Wheatland end of it, there's a curve by a big apartment building, lots of people there. People in the apartment building, of course, have 2 cars per unit, and they only got 1 slot, so they park out on the street. My wife was commenting that that's really dangerous there because the road's too narrow for 2 cars to go by. So, being a nice husband, I took the car out and went and drove back over it again and said, this road is the same width all the way through that corner as it was in the straight section. And we didn't have any problem with cars parked on both sides, driving with 2 other cars going opposite directions. We had lots of room. When you get to the corner, you still have the same amount of room. And so an optical illusion is all of a sudden the road's narrowed way down and people pull into the center which is dangerous. Okay, but I don't know what you do about that in terms of education, except make people know where the right wheel of their car is. I mean, if you're 6 feet from the car back there, why can't you stay 6 feet from the right-hand side when you get up? Anyway, that's just a comment.
The other thing.
I got in trouble anyway, it didn't make any difference.
Is the at least slow down.
Yeah.
You do because of the corners.
Yes.
And another thing is.
Traffic calming device.
Yeah, my kids live in Portland, and I mentioned to Dan that, like the street my son lives on has speed bumps every other block forever. And the streets that go the other direction have them also. So if you're in a hurry, it just jars your teeth because you can't do 25 on those streets. And then I was over in North Portland, and they have them on every block. In the middle of every block is a speed bump.
So they do have something to spare.
But that one, my real concern was, one is I had a question for Mike. Mike, how much does a 150-foot sidewalk on one side of a street cost? Can you get, is that, and that may be an unfair question. Assuming that there's no utilities under it, you don't have to move telephone poles, just kind of a bare budget, bare bones. And then I have another question.
So 150 is 30 times 325. Well, roughly around $10,000, and then that's just buying the concrete. That doesn't include the labor, and it doesn't include, the concrete, or excuse me, the contractor time. So, 15,000.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And we're not going to hold you to that, but somewhere in that neighborhood. Okay.
Wait a minute, you're not going to, or the whole committee isn't going to? Because Hirsch might.
Come up with this, Chair. Yeah, you and I, okay. Now, the next question was to Dan is, how do we get, if I make a proposal that the city take on the responsibility of putting in sidewalks, even though the people in the neighborhood won't? How do we get that, how can we request that be put in the budget? In which case, you as the representative of the city council would be paying for those sidewalks. Is that something worth pursuing? And we've only got a month to do it in.
Yeah.
Well, then you need to go to the budget committee.
True. Is there any way, okay, go ahead.
And that's coming up, the budget is coming up here pretty quick.
Right, but the budget's already pre-prepared. I've been on the budget committee. The budget is set before it gets to the budget committee. Not permanently, but it's there.
It's prepared.
Prepared by the city.
Right, the framework is there.
Who do we need to talk to before they go to the budget committee?
If I may, that's a pretty ambiguous request. I think that if you really want to get action from the budget committee, and you couldn't do it probably this year because I think it would take too long, but I would say what you really need to do is go do an inventory of your sidewalks and the ones that you want to have replaced, get the money, or get the amount, the length of them and everything, and then use Mike's formula to figure out roughly how much it would cost, and then you go to the budget committee and say, we want this amount of money set aside so we can get sidewalks.
Right. But given the short attention, what I was more concerned about is I really didn't even care which sidewalks they did. I mean, I don't need them in my neighborhood. Somebody does. Is that...
But what you're saying...
It seems to me the city council would have a policy that says, look, in general, I mean, we repave streets, we should be adding, I don't care, 2, 8, 1 block a year we're going to put in as a policy statement to guide the budget for the next 20 years so that we can get something done about these sidewalks. Because I really don't believe that the people are going to tax themselves for a new sidewalk in front of their house. The people who need the sidewalks most are the least able to pay for it. And I wasn't trying to get them all done. I was just saying we could set up a system for evaluating and deciding which the city could, or we could, which blocks to do. And we could do the cheapest ones for the first 10 years or something. But I was just wondering, is there a way we could do that if the committee was interested? Because we can't pick somebody else's work and say, this is what we want done. But is that a policy statement, Dan? I mean, is it a rule we can recommend?
As a city, we do budgets for all kinds of things, and a lot of times we're using grant money to do the sidewalks, just like the street lights and things like that we put in. Right now, our city budget is really, really tight. If you look at the amount of money that we have left over when we plug everything in now, it is tight. So if we came up with a plan and said, this is what we'd like to do, and it was presented to the budget committee, we would like to set aside X number of dollars each year for sidewalk improvements, that is something that I'm sure the budget committee would consider. But anything quick, no.
Well, no, I also don't think it would probably happen. I mean, I'm kind of realistic. I don't think it would happen this year anyway because of that. But if it was presented to the budget committee, and bring it up, and then they can vote no on it. No, we're not going to give you the $15,000 to put in a sidewalk anywhere in the city, which is fine. That's their decision. But at least it's been brought up. So when you bring it up the second time and the third time, I think it starts to make an impact. And we could mention it to whoever, but I don't mind going to the budget committee. But we also fund other things on the board at the budget committee, not quite as much as that, but.
Well, I think at least conceptually, that's part of the transportation system plan. And I guess the question is, what's going to happen with that, and how do the specific projects that are identified in that plan get prioritized? Because there's a whole catalog of.
They don't mention in that plan, the last two we've done, do not address. I don't know, how would you call paving? I mean, putting in sidewalks where you don't have any.
Pedestrian.
That's part of the pedestrian and
But it's not, I read that plan, in and out. We have lots of street improvements, but we're not talking about a street improvement. We're talking about putting a sidewalk in on one side. Although that's pretty minor as opposed to widening up, putting curbs on both sides, moving the sewers.
Sidewalk improvements.
Yeah, it's just a small thing. Maybe it should be in there, but it's not.
Well, and it could get back to what I said, how whenever we're tearing up some pavement and redoing something, the sidewalk should be an automatic, and a traffic calming too, should be an automatic part of it.
Pretty much is, isn't it?
It depends on where you're at, but once you do that, you add the curb and the gutter and you add the sidewalk, then you have no place for the water to go. So where's that water gonna go? Well, you need to put in a storm line. Well, said area has no storm line, so how do we address those issues? So the simplicity of let's go put a sidewalk here just grew. And I'm not saying it can't happen, I don't mean that at all, but I mean, and it's great that we're talking about this, it's just.
I remember when I talked to Bill several years ago about the sidewalk from Kaiser on Verda, from Kaiser Road to, is it Cummings? Or Dearborn? Just that, was it 3 blocks, like a short area. That area right there outside the traffic circle is unbelievably expensive because you've got a huge ditch, property alignments are incorrect, utilities on both sides, you get the farm on the other, anyway. But for $15,000, I could name you 20 streets that don't have any utilities on them that would be take minimal amount of work to ready it to put in the sidewalk, and it's a heavily used area. So I'm not trying to pave all the sidewalks in Kaiser. I want to pave 10 of them in the next 5 years, how's that? Or 2 years, whatever.
It's a saying, how to eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Right. So anyway, can we, if nothing else, can we put that on next meeting's agenda? Because the first budget meeting is April 1st.
It's coming right up.
Well, they have the long-range planning task force coming up March 4th, I think. No, that must be 11th. Budget is, this wrong side, that's right. Okay. Yes, budget starts May 11th, 12th, and 14th.
Okay, so when's the long-range budget meeting?
Long range is, it is the work session. Oh, I think it's coming up on the 9th. Do you remember that, Dan? For
March
work
9th.
session?
But sounds right.
Yeah, I think it's the 9th. If it's not the 9th, it's April 13th.
Well, does it
But I'm
have-
pretty sure it's the 9th.
I mean, is that a closed session?
No, meetings are
I mean, I can come in and
closed.
say I want stop signs on every road from
Right.
here to whatever.
Right, and they could tell you to go make them.
Okay, but if I came in, no, okay, so maybe we need, the only way to officially representing all of you to go to the long-range budget planning meeting and ask for them to put in the budget a specific amount every year for the next umpteen years for sidewalk improvements is
To go as a member of the committee.
to go as a member of the committee, and we can't do that until we have a motion to be voted on.
Well, or you can go by consensus. If it's by consensus that everybody wants you to represent the committee, that will work.
Okay.
Okay. Well, all in favor of David going?
How about just consensus?
that was-
Does anybody want me to stay home March 9th?
You don't need
anyone
to do
against
that. I
it?
mean, if everybody, you can just ask everybody if they're okay with it.
Are you all okay with David going to represent us?
Yes.
Are you okay with the idea of just?
Well, what we heard tonight, in this one example that was Churchdale, it's an old county road that doesn't have sidewalks. Behind my old house on Clark, no sidewalks.
Mandarin.
Yeah.
Well,
There's all these.
All sorts of, I can think of all sorts of places.
So I support your move.
Okay, but we could set up at a later date how we evaluate where to
Exactly.
put them.
Yeah, we're just having you go say, we want money set aside in the budget.
Kaiser has to save, and this is the way to get it, start saving for, and like you said, later evaluate what streets.
Yeah, and it's not a huge, I don't know, Dan, what's a huge amount? Well, no, seriously, I mean, I don't have a problem, if I go in and ask for $15,000 a year and I ended up with one block a year, it's gonna take us a while to finish the city.
One block's one block.
But is 60,000 too much, do you think? For the city to kick out per year?
We're looking to find $15,000 to buy a software program that would keep us from having to put on another full-time employee, and we haven't found it yet.
Yeah. Never mind, I was on the budget committee, so I'm not gonna argue with you about what's in the budget and where I can give you the money.
It doesn't hurt to ask.
Well, we just want to ask, and it's kind of, who makes the policy that we're going to do that? But the long-range budget committee recommends to the city council, and the city council says, do it.
Well, city council talks to the city finance director,
Yeah,
Tim,
I mean,
and
it's
Tim
just-
goes, there's no dying way, or, well, we might be able to figure that out.
Or we change, yeah, but anyway, it brings it up for a conversation.
Right, if it's not brought up, it won't happen.
Yes. So, what do you think, Jamie?
I think that grants might be the way we have to keep going.
The problem with grants is we will always go for the grants.
Right.
We're not, I'm just saying, that I've been here, whatever, 15, 20 years. It seems to me that we've relied on grants and haven't picked up the slack on our own. I mean, not hugely, but
We do some.
We do some, but we're.
The key thing here is putting some money aside, because if we do grow, in Kaiser, I'm talking to Mike Jaffe, Kaiser, that's all you guys ever do. But we always have to have a match. Okay, that 15,000 is gonna be a match, and we can, so.
And if that comes up, that's fine.
Yeah.
We get twice as much.
Right,
yeah.
So, you okay with, I'm gonna ask for 30,000 a year. That's 2 blocks a year, okay? We can always change it at a later date, come back the year after and ask for twice as much.
I was thinking start with 15, and then if the budget situation improves, then we could always ask for more.
I'm gonna pick up a copy of the budget when it comes out, and I'll find
Okay.
30,000.
Good, all right.
It doesn't hurt to ask, or at least get the thoughts going.
Well, 30,000 doesn't seem, 2 blocks doesn't seem like much.
No, one bite at a time.
The true answer to that is you lose 100% of what you don't ask for. The wisdom is to know when to ask and when not to.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll start it. We gotta start somewhere.
Okay.
March 9th, here, Debbie?
Yes,
Said in this-
I will double check on it and let you know for sure.
Dan gonna be here? He knows what I'm talking about.
So I have to leave a little early, so Wayne has accepted the gavel. And he also has the list of people who spoke. So sorry I will be missing the last little bit, but hopefully no fires will happen while I'm gone. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
thank you.
That's Mark, I think so, yes.
Mike, can we have a staff report, please?
The second.
Yes, you can. I will be reporting on the Delight Street 10-foot asphalt pathway. Do you have something, Hirsch?
No, I'm excited about that.
By the way, thank you, Mr. Chair. So that will be that's gone out to bid. It opens up next Tuesday at 2 p.m. and we'll find out who the contractor is that got that job. Recently, our water staff has been busy moving some water meters out of the way that would have been in that 10-foot pathway. Salem Electric has 2 power poles they need to move, and CenturyLink has a pole they need to move, and so that way there will be no obstructions in that pathway. The contractor, whoever gets that bid, will be able to start as soon as April 6th, and the completion date will be June 15th. So it'll happen pretty quickly and it'll be taken care of. So
Very good.
that's what I have to report on. Thank you.
And Officer Leday, can we have a report from the police department, please?
Nothing new except for the materials that we did talk about earlier as far as bringing some of those stats. It was just at a different time that it was brought out.
Okay. Any questions for
both of them. Monster Cookie, April 26th. I got the paperwork to you, Officer Leday, right?
It's on their calendar.
Okay, and Mike?
Sweeping the streets prior to that.
And there's a box of cookies for both of you.
Motivation.
Councilman Kohler, can we have a council report, please?
Thank you, Chair Pro Tem. There's a couple of things. Northwest Hub had made a request for some bike paths, some different directions, different routes that we could go, and I want to thank Debbie for sending them some information. Is there anything more that we need to do with that, Debbie, that you're aware of?
I went and picked it all up and took it to their liaison person who said, why didn't they come to me? Because she had a whole box of them, but they're there. So it was a miscommunication by Northwest Hub, but they have all the maps, and the maps themselves are made by Transit Trip Choice, and they had boxes of them, and David and I hand those out at a lot of the bike events we've been doing, so they got them.
Thank you for doing that, and Debbie, thank you for following up on that. And then I've heard a lot of things brought up tonight, and I just wrote some little notes on some of them. The stick and stomps. I talked to Mr. Lawyer about the stick and stomps, the little reflective things that can be, those things are really, really expensive. And then what happens is they come loose and they are a maintenance nightmare trying to keep them all going. And so that's one of the reasons we haven't done that is because they're just so expensive. Just so very much expensive. And so I think if we get the new striping with the little crystals in it renewed, then that'll help a lot. But stick and stomps, I like that. We talked about engineering guidelines and things. There's a couple different studies that are going on right now. As we are looking at the urban growth boundary and what we can do with that, there's a traffic study we're doing right now. Mr. Brown has engaged them, and I think they will start here in the next few weeks. We got a grant to do a traffic study, and it's not the big traffic study that we need for the whole city, but as different areas could be expanded, what would that do to our traffic and where would it go? And so there is some work being done on that. And the speed bumps, for the most part, what speed bumps do is they force traffic out of residential areas onto main arterials. And one of the challenges we have with speed bumps is that, well, the bicyclists don't care much for them, is one. And the second is that we don't have all that many main arterials for them to go to from those residential areas. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's no real short-term answer to any of that. And that is one of those things that when I started running for city council, I was to look at, because if there's an accident on River Road, right in the middle of River Road, it's hard to get around it. It's
Like
just,
the other night.
it's just really, really difficult. So again, there's no easy answers to that, but it is something that we sure could look at. And I just wanted to say to Sergeant Leday, there's this next Tuesday, there will be some traffic problems, some traffic stops with the honor guard that'll be coming to the funeral. Did you want to address that at all?
Certainly. So on Tuesday, we'll be doing a celebration of life for Officer Dan Carroll, who was unfortunately taken away from us way too early. There'll be a joint effort as far as a funeral procession that'll be going on. The Fallen Badge Foundation actually took it over for us, so it relieved us from actually doing anything other than let guys grieve, guys and gals within the agency and their family. But the procession will actually start over at Volcano Stadium. That'll actually start at noon, where the vehicles will be coming out of Volcano Stadium. They'll go around Kaiser Station Boulevard down to Lock Haven Drive, where they'll be making a west-hand turn heading towards River Road. From River Road, they'll be heading southbound along River until they actually cross over the Parkway onto Broadway. And then immediately after Broadway, we'll actually be turning on to Tryon, and then 4th Avenue, and then to the church, the Evangelical Church out there. Yeah. Realistically, we believe most likely the head of the parade or the procession would actually probably take roughly about 15 minutes. We don't know exactly how many vehicles will be in that procession, certainly all of our Kaiser cars, but we do have outside agency support. Eugene PD, their traffic sergeant, actually took on the responsibility for us of setting up the route, and I believe right now he's somewhere around a count of about 30 to 35 motors that will be assisting with that safe travel of method with traffic control through there. So I think we could probably estimate between 50 cars to 150 cars potentially that could be from head to tail. But it shouldn't take that long, and it shouldn't disrupt traffic for very much time at all.
What time does it start?
Tuesday?
Noon.
So
Tuesday at noon?
So yeah, so Tuesday,
Funeral
February
starts.
18th, procession actually leaves Volcano Stadium at noon.
Well, we certainly want to make sure that you know that we offer our condolences to all the police department and
Greatly
Officer
appreciate
Dan's
it.
family. He was a good guy. Definitely a good guy. And I also have a note here that, Jamie, thank you. Thank you for stepping up and being a part of all this. And Stephen here recently did that also. We appreciate you being here. Thank you for your service to the city. None of these committees would work without people volunteering their time and energies, and we just want you to know we appreciate it. Thank you. And Mr. Chair Pro Tem, that's all I have tonight.
Okay. Anything else on anyone's mind? Okay, we're gonna call this meeting adjourned at 8:12.